Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode number 7 of the Phoenix Flight Path. I'm Jimmy Vandermark, the host, and I know we often say there's a bit of a calm before the storm, but for me it feels like this is the calm after the storm that was the 2025 Phoenix. A wonderful race night. I watched it from afar, but I absolutely loved it. You could see the atmosphere, the tribal-like atmosphere, and the memorable result in the Phoenix as well, with Deadly Avenger being one at the last selected, then coming out, strutting his stuff and racing clear to win the $1 million race. Phenomenal effort. Had a bit of a lurgy through the week as well, so the voice at the moment not that good, a little bit congested, a little bit like the Monash Freeway at peak hour, I reckon would be the way to describe my sort of nostril passage at the moment as I welcome you, Mickey. I'm fresh off doing a poo, which I like to do as well before we kick off a pod. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. I thought you sounded a bit weird at Sandown Park on Monday night. Now I know.
I've had a lot going on, mate. I've had we've been scammed as well over the weekend. As I say, I've had this sort of little bit of a lurgy just sticking around. I thought it was hay fever. Ended up being a little bit worse than that. But we soldier on. This time of year, we can sort of kick the toes up a little bit. The racing season almost done. We will head to Sale and have a look at the Sale Cup to kickstart 2026. Hard to believe we're at 2026. But, mate, the Phoenix race did not disappoint. I reckon the toughest, the roughest, but maybe the most exciting version of the Phoenix yet.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I was happily on Deadly Avenger, so that was nice. But it was pretty painless watch, to be honest. And even Deadly Avenger and Canyon Mayhem headbutted down the back straight. I reckon they still ran 1 and 2. So just a lot of the other dogs in the race just found a ton of trouble, didn't they?
There's a couple of dot points that I had watching the race. I actually watched the race at a Lewis Capaldi concert. So I was sitting there and I was in one of the back rows just going, gee, I just couldn't believe it, to be honest, the way that the race played out and Deadly Avenger just sweeping up. And once he got to second, it was all over. But the first dot point that I want to chat about is box draw selection, because the Phoenix is a different race in the sense that connections get to select their box if they're drawn out first, and although you would think box 1 and box 2 are the best 2 boxes to have in a Phoenix, again it proved that connections were wrong, and the inside part of the track maybe not the place to be in a Phoenix.
I said it quite frequently. I just couldn't get that silver bullet run out of my head of Slick Splits off the red. It was a winnable race and he couldn't do it off the red, and I just couldn't have him off that inside draw. It's just heartbreaking stuff for connections there. What would have been wrong with, say, just picking box 3, right in line with the lure, the way the box draw came? Of course, you can never predict it. Cumbria Jack coming out next. They could have gone straight to box 1 with him. Could have had a completely different map, a completely different race, but another middle and wide draw winning it. And as you said, bang on there, James. Box 1, Slick Splits, just it never got into the race, never looked like it. Ordinary run it was.
Look, I think the inside draw is just not his go. We're going to mention each and every runner, and congratulations straight off the top, as you mentioned, mate. Not only the winner, Deadly Avenger, but you snagged the 1-2. The other thing that I do actually want to mention is the fact that Team Thompson obviously had their selection with distinction. That was effectively the last one, but they were always going to go with a dog within their 4 walls. But the last 2 greyhounds to be selected. Now, this stands out for me. Deadly Avenger to David Burke Constructions, the eventual winner. And then Canyon Mayhem for Jess Hopkins, who was one of the last selected as well. Is this something that we learn for the Phoenix moving forward, or is it just by chance that a couple of these other dogs were desperately unlucky, and as it turned out, some of the last greyhounds to be selected were the ones finishing at the pointy end of the order?
I think it's a bit of both. I just think the Wow She's Fast of a couple of years ago aren't around, and the greyhound racing's patterns seem to have changed. I don't know what it is, but they just need constant racing. And I think 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all greyhounds who have been racing constantly over the last few weeks. Cumbria Jack's connections might have had that Wow She's Fast blueprint in mind, but I just think for whatever it is across the whole greyhounds in totality, they just seem to need to race more recently and more frequently, and they're the ones that battled out the finish.
We want to go through them runner by runner, starting with the winner, Deadly Avenger. It was interesting because the last greyhound to be selected box draw wise as well, and they got gifted box number 6, which, as we spoke about last week on the pod, mate, it wasn't bad. Like, you had a rise
I liked it.
You had distinction going left. You had Melly Beauty and Accredited staying off. So although it was sort of, you can just be thrown into box 6, David Burke and your team with Deadly Avenger, I think we said it was arguably one of the best draws in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was banking on distinction and Ariza Sparkles to ping to the lead. In the end, it was only one of them that did that, Ariza Sparkles. She probably went a little bit more left than I thought. And Deadly Avenger also probably went a little bit more left than I thought, and was probably fortunate enough that it cleared Mally Beauty and accredited. And all of a sudden, I expected him to have some space, but not that much space, and was probably that little bit more forward than I thought. And distinction helped matters in the end by probably missing it and just causing that bit of carnage with the inside brigade.
Second greyhound across the line was Kenya Mayhem. I think he was the hard luck story of the race, and yet he still runs second. And I'm sure Jess Hopkins would be absolutely thrilled. But he stepped so well, and I think if a Rise of Sparkles isn't in the race, Mickey, it probably was his race for the keeping.
Yep. I thought he was enormous, absolutely enormous. I spoke to Jess after the race, and I'm just like, you should just be absolutely thrilled with that. And she was. It was all heart, wasn't it? Wasn't he? And he said he got headbutted. Him and Deadly Avenger headbutted each other, and he still attacked the line so well. And that was accredited. That was charging home late, and Kenya Mayhem was still holding him off. With what went wrong in the race, I just thought he was fantastic.
On to accredited, box number 80. He never really impacted in the race, and I've probably been a little bit harsh on him, but at the end of the day, Neddy Mack walks away with a third in a Phoenix. So I reckon Sportsbet, who teamed up with Ned McDonald, they had an awkward box 8 as it turned out. No fault of Ned McDonald, just the way that the draw played out. I reckon as you go to the start, the over-under for him would have been a top 5, would have been a good result. So to walk away with a third, I think they've done a hell of a job with accredited.
Yeah, I thought it was another excellent run. It showed that he's not one-dimensional and doesn't need to just nail the start. He had things go wrong also in the run and still tried his heart out to run into third there. I thought he was great.
Mally Beauty, I'm just watching the replay to myself here again. And what did you make of Mally Beauty? Because she's done an outstanding job to run fourth in a Phoenix. She clipped heels, but I just feel like the first 100 metres, she couldn't have had a better run, and majority of this field were finding interference. So I feel like I was right in saying in the lead up, I don't think she can win a race like the Phoenix.
Yeah, agreed. I didn't really like the run. I remember when I was sort of going back through the exotics, I was actually surprised to see she ran fourth, because the last thing I seem to remember in the back straight was her just getting this one almighty momentum halt and check. Now, where was she in that first few strides of the race? That was it. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I thought she was a bit ordinary.
Yeah, well, she was fourth, 2.5 off the lead. And you could argue that if she split Deadly Avenger and Kenya Mayhem, she might have won the race. But that would have been, I think, by absolute fluke and by the other majority of the field finding trouble. On to the next greyhound across the line, which was Cumbria Jack. Well, we just had a little bit of a tech issue, not the first time with Mickey Tiny's mobile phone than an issue. It was battery low. Last time it was overheating. But we roll on. Cumbria Jack, I thought his run was outstanding. He couldn't have stepped any better. It was the greyhound in the same kennel that sort of buggered him up, as it turned out, off the inside slick splits, wanted to use the track, and then he got past slick splits, and you think, gee, are we on here with Cumbria Jack, who drifted out to a huge price for mine, and then it was Distinction, who just planted him straight into the rail. To get up and run fifth, I think, proved that I reckon he was the best dog in the race. Maybe you could still argue that the prep and the lack of Meadows form could have been a problem, but for me, it was just bad luck on the night.
Oh, it could have been a problem. No, it was a problem. Like, he still hadn't raced in a couple of months, James. I don't know. I felt that he might have been a little bit over the top in the boxes. If you go back and watch the replay, he looked like he was barking in the boxes. I'm not entirely sure, but one thing we do agree on, Distinction drove him absolutely mad wherever he went and put him into the rail as well. I don't know. It was 50-50 on the run. Considering, and there was a reason why he drifted, is because he hadn't raced. So your robot punters late he was out the gate on Betfair, and that's probably why he drifted. But yeah, he hit the line well. Unlucky in the run with Distinction, but yeah, I thought he was okay.
Well, I had him losing 9-10 in the run, and got beaten 6.89. So it tells me if he got clean air, he wins by 3.5 and goes 29-41, and we're arguing he's one of the greats of all time. So I think he was hard done by, but that also is his racing pattern. He's not a Learjet rocket beginner, and you are going to find trouble in races like this more often than not. A Rise of Sparkles.
Don't forget too, James. Like Deadly Avenger also got hit down the back straight as well. It's headbutted the three, so it's had things go wrong too. So I just think if it wasn't, like you said, Cumbria Jack no doubt lost lengths, but if it wasn't that, it might have been something else.
Yeah, fair enough. I just think the way I looked at the race, there was only 2 greyhounds that had effectively an unimpeded run to the first quarter, maybe 3. That was a Rise of Sparkles, Deadly Avenger, Kenya Mayhem, and as they came off the back, they were the 3 that were dominating. On to a Rise of Sparkles. Well, Cumbria Jack was out the back. A Rise of Sparkles was up in front. And I reckon for a fleeting moment, Ram Racing, the Whelans, Stephen Fitch, they would have started to get a little bit excited when she roared to the back straight in front. And then I think they realised Deadly Avenger was right up her hammer.
Yeah, it was what probably wouldn't have been for too long. They would have been very confident, but yeah, she didn't hit the line at all. Well, really, yeah, she was well and truly gone probably between the staying boxes and the 600-meter boxes. She did what she was meant to do. She was probably the only greyhound who was unimpeded early, got her optimal pattern, just wasn't good enough on the night.
We spoke of Slick Splits, maybe just not a box one dog. He had that limited preparation. There were maybe a couple of X's against him coming into the race, and maybe that told on the night, and Distinction was the other dog. What did you make of her? Like, obviously, didn't begin like we know that she can. First race on an occasion like that, in a field like that. Do you think that's a good thing for her? She'll take improvement, and maybe in 6-12 months down the track, she's got that experience and she could go to that next level?
Yeah, not even that. I think the Australian Cup Carnival in 8 or 10 weeks will be right up her alley. I think she'll be better for it. Just missed the start. I think it's one of those ones, if Captain Hindsight comment, the way she ended up racing, almost you kind of go, yeah, I'm not surprised by that in hindsight. So, she'll be better for it. Didn't nail the jump. And even if she did, I think a Rise of Sparkles probably would have cut her off anyway. And I still think she would have finished down the track anyway.
Strange question for you, but if you had to pick one of these greyhounds that could come back in 12 months, we've seen a lot of greyhounds come back in the race. Scalacci had a second attempt, didn't work out. Well, She's Fast had 3 attempts. Second one was a win. Last one didn't work out. Is there a greyhound that could be the star of greyhound racing in 12 months and win the Phoenix next year that raced on Saturday night in the Phoenix?
Yes, the answer's easy. You might be surprised to hear me say it. It's Cumbria Jack.
Really?
I think he can be the. Yep, I think if he can be the one, he can just race frequently, have an injury interrupted year. God knows how good he could be next year over a couple of these carnivals, the Queensland Carnival. Yeah, you got the Easter egg at Wenty. I still think if he can have that big year, I mean, who would have thought Explicit nearly made it that extra year? So why can't Cumbria Jack? So Cumbria Jack for me would be the one with a great preparation next year, please.
Are you running scared of our man Fitchy?
Actually, I spoke to Steve on Saturday night when up behind the boxes for Sky. Yeah, he couldn't have been any more friendlier. So, yeah, great guy.
Ripping fella, no doubt about that. Well, that was the field. That was the result. Deadly Avenger, David Burke Constructions, the champion in the 2025 Phoenix. What a build-up it was and what a race it was as well. It was action-packed start to finish. We cannot wait for 2026. Big race preview. Big race preview time. From one big one to another Mickey tie, we go from the Phoenix over to the Silver Chief. And just prior to getting to the Silver Chief, 2 track records broken in the one night at the Meadows, at a track where the best of the best strut their stuff week in, week out. Obviously, conditions may be conducive to quick times. Track was playing on the good side, but to kick off Kako Magic for Stefano Cassari, he'd been through a bit, Stefano, with his dogs. He and his partner were unfortunately in that fire where their kennel caught fire a couple of years ago, and I think they lost a few dogs on that occasion. There was a GoFundMe, and the industry really got behind them. But to see them back up and training a few years later, what a wonderful result. 33.91, ping to the front, hard to lead like that from box 6, and you'd have to say it's near impossible to run 33.91 at the Meadows. Well, maybe not now.
Yeah, insane. Yeah, it just seems to be improving in every start. The start before he only went 35.13, but just found so much trouble. And this time it was like it was just the arrival of him, and he just went bang. There was nothing around him early, exploded to the lead. I did not expect that time. I can give you a little fun fact on this dog. When he trialled at the Meadows, probably only 6 or 7, maybe 8 weeks ago, he only went 25.30 post to post and ran home in 11.91. So I would not have predicted 391 over 600, a couple of months later. Insane.
I called him when he won. I reckon it was his second start at Ballarat, and he looked really impressive that night. He stepped well and isn't always a great beginner. That's the one knock on him at this stage. Sectional data says he'll run well beyond 600 metres as well. So maybe pencil him in as a dog that might be contesting the 700 in, 6 months, the Sandown Cup against Without a Trace, maybe. Let's get to heat 1 of the Silver Chief, rolling division. Weblek Billy defeating Amron Toy, Consigliere third, and the speedy West Australian Justa Piastri went across to lead, but quite couldn't maintain the heat when the whips were cracking. Weblek Billy, 29.79. I mean, this is just a dog that can run. He sometimes needs things to go right, but he was there at the right time, and he was too good from a couple of unlucky runners, second and third, I feel.
Yeah, I was surprised where Billy was as short as he was, and he got the job done. I thought this was the hardest of the Silver Chief heats. He had On the Prowl, he had Amaron Toy, Consigliere, Justa Piastri. I thought both Consigliere and Justa Piastri were probably both a bit disappointing. On the Prowl and Amaron Toy, probably not much luck. And yeah, Webleck Billy, I was surprised he won, and I couldn't have him anywhere near as short as he was, but it just shows you what great trainers Jeff and Angela are, getting another one of these young dogs into a Group 1 final.
They continue to do it, don't they? Then you go from Heat 1 to Heat 2 and they're the winner again. Jeff Britton with Whiskey Whiskers. I think Dewana Star ran an awesome race out in front. 5:03, 17:58. Sort of the reason why I thought he could be a Phoenix dog earlier in the year, Dewana Star. He's probably still maybe a month, 2, 3 months away. I think the Oz Cup's where you'll see him really primed for 500 metres. Whiskey Whiskers just got the drop on him, and it took the whole 5:25 for him to run Dewana Star down. Both qualify for this week's Silver Chief.
Yeah, and Whiskey Whiskers, I thought he had a brilliant map. I just thought he was going to get the best card over you'll ever see from sparring, and sparring completely bombed it. So, Whiskey Whiskers, I thought he won on his merits. He covered a lot of ground. Dewana Star did everything right. As you said, absolutely spot on, James. Dewana Star lost no admirers there. If you backed him at the short odds, you'd be fuming, but he's there in the final, and as he said, he's got a ton of upside still over the next few months. And so does Whiskey Whiskers. I just think the map looks a bit tricky in the final this time around.
Yeah, well, Dewana Star and Whiskey Whiskers both qualifying. 6 heats, so the 6 winners, 2 fastest seconds, and I'm glad to see Dewana Star taking his place in the final. Heat number 3 was won by Vista Weird. I liked him on the each way in this race. He probably goes against the trend of what you want to back at the Meadows. This had box 8, slow beginner. You normally go, no thanks, but there's something about this dog, Vista Weird. He sort of navigates through a field, I think, true daily style. They educate them well against other runners, and it's not just by fluke that they can run 5:23, navigate through a Group 1 heat field from midfield, and then run 29:68, 69. I mean, this was a big win, but he's going to need luck in the final, but he's going to hit the line good.
Yeah, he'd been threatening to do this for a while, this dog, and he's been a bit of a tease, to be honest. I've sort of given up on him a bit, and he finally showed what he's made of, and it was impressive because you had Mapunga Zircon in this heat. You had Aston Countack, he's probably the unluckiest dog in Australia, that dog. And then you also had Never Ever Late off the red. So to do that from box 8 was a super effort. But yeah, I think he's another who'll find the map a bit tricky in the final.
What about Ross? Big Ross the Boss, named after the St Kilda coach. Early speed was shown by Off the Chart. I'll question you on him in just a moment, but Ross the Boss, I think, holds the aces to the final, holds the keys to the car to start the engine in the Silver Chief this week, because you see it from box 5, he wants to use the track, and he's come up with box number 2 in the final, and then he's got Traumatised to his inside, who's going to get a heap of space to move. What did you make of Ross? Secondly, was Off the Chart a little disappointing in the run home, or was it just a bit of a lack of race fitness for him?
I think a lack of race fitness, and on the racing.com telecast when Patch was interviewing Peter Prosciutto, he sort of said that it had a setback and was, that's the code for it's probably a run short, and it hit the line like that. So probably a bit stiff to not make the final Off the Chart considering the time it ran. Ross the Boss being a bit disappointing in starts prior, so bit of rapid improvement there, but has gone well at the Meadows previously. And you're right, it may well just make the race for Traumatised. I don't think Ross the Boss can win from box 2 in the final.
Beautiful segue to Traumatised. This was a track record-breaking run of a record that we may have thought would never be broken, to be fair. The Meadows, you just don't see them run 29.3. It's as simple as that. 5:03, 17:53. When that flashes up down the back, you know this is something special. 29.359 was the official time for Traumatising, breaking the track record that stood for nearly as long as I've been alive, Mickey boy. It was a phenomenal run, and I know that Thompson Kennel have always had a huge opinion of him. We've spoke about him in the lead up to the Phoenix. We thought he would be Thompson's selection, Awesome Lodge for the Phoenix, but he can do a bit wrong, and maybe this is the turning point, the penny dropping, and from here on in he can just become a megastar because he's got the engine room. He just doesn't, or he maybe doesn't know how to show it week in, week out.
Yeah, just those box matters. He's just got to start nailing every week. Everything you said there's spot on, James. One of those ones as a punter, he can still make plenty of mistakes. He never stopped learning in this game. But so just, to give you an example, I backed him off box 8 in a Melbourne Cup heat. Dumb. It's just a nightmare draw. And then what happens on Saturday night? I don't have a penny on him. Back to a Silver Chief, age-restricted race. Infinitely better map, and I don't have a cent on him. In fact, I back Cracker Jack Ralph, so it's like, what was I doing? And I got whacked with a track record.
Yeah, I know. I thought he'd win this, to be honest, because he's a type of dog that if he gets no pressure in the first 100 meters, he can really just explode. And I feel like, as you say, that Sandown run Melbourne Cup heat night wasn't that bad. He's starting to build. He's drawn the red in the final. I think he's clearly the dog to beat. Fire won race number 8, which was the final heat, defeating Intrepidus. And I reckon there's a few greyhounds now. We've sort of seen the last 12 months the staying racing just a little bit on the lighter side. There's a little bit of a lack of depth. I think that's all about to change, because I think this dog here, Electrify, for me, just screams out, Greggy Doyle, just keep me ticking over. And in 6 months from now, I could become a real megastar stayer.
Yeah, possibly. You could be hitting the line like Texas Gold if you remember him back in the day. This is actually my best bet of the night on Phoenix Night Electrify. I just thought he'd been airborne the last few starts. I just loved the way. I was very worried about this dog. Those few starts back at Sandown on a Monday night in small fields, he just seemed to be sort of bludging or not putting in. And I'm going, where's this dog at? Because I sort of know Greg Doyle's had some huge six-figure offers for this dog. And then the last 3 starts at the Meadows, he's just gone bang. And that win had to be seen to be believed the other night. It was just sensational. And I think he's a huge over in the final at $17 currently in the early market. So I think if the want to start can begin and give him a card over, traumatized wouldn't want to make any mistakes. I think this dog's right in it on an each way basis.
Mate, he's 2 months off being 2. He's bred by Shishkin and Zach Manelli. So to me, it just screams out he's going to get more ground. And Greg Doyle's been pretty patient. He's obviously known the dog's got a huge motor. He'd been bumped around a bit after that huge win on debut, 29-26 at Sandown Park. And I just feel now he's starting to show his true ability there. So I think he was about 9 starts in for just 1 win. So they would have started to get itchy fingers.
Greg Doyle was sensational too, both before the race and post race. Just very informative with what was going on with this dog and how he's sending up. It might have been unworldly, I think, to Tom Savalas, and that it was some great info that he gave out. And for it to go around at sort of $6 at Intrepidus, I was worried about it getting jammed up. It really didn't do much wrong, but Electrified just floated late and got over the top and won.
Box draw now for the big one, the Silver Chief, 75k to the winner, but Group 1 status. And I've spoken to a few people this week that said maybe this holds more value as a potential stud career if you win a Silver Chief than a Phoenix, which is interesting. Number 1, Traumatised. 2, Ross the Boss. 3 is Room to Breathe. 4, Vista Weird. 5, Whiskey Whiskers. 6, The Want a Star. Box number 7, Electrify. The 8, Weblek Billy. 9, Aston Countach. And 10 is Off the Chart. I'm going to fire away, mate, with my selection for the race, because for me, I think this is a race where Traumatised just has to win. He just has to win this. He has to jump. He has to let Ross the Boss take care of a few of the others, drive through. If he goes 5 dead, if he goes 17.50, if he goes 29.50 this week, he'll be the winner. So this is a big moment for Traumatised. I know that the camp have had a huge opinion of him, and I don't know, Mickey, this is the moment that if Traumatised is going to be a star of the next 12 months, he can't afford to lose this. Simple as that.
Yep, and he's one of the probably only 3 greyhounds in the race who I think's got a positive map. I think Ross the Boss, Room to Breathe, Vista Weird, Whiskey Whiskers, and Weblek Billy probably all map worse than their heat runs. So you're sort of left with Dewana Star. He's probably got good early pace, probably can negate that. And Electrify is the one who I think if he got a card across, because he didn't have much luck going into the first turn either on Saturday night, I think he's the one that if Traumatised makes a mistake, Electrify is the one. So just at the price, $1.65 V17, I'm going to tip Electrify on top, probably on a 1x3 type bet, but could not pot you whatsoever for tipping Traumatised off the red. At $1.65, probably priced pretty well, even at $1.65. And look, he'll probably win, but just at the price differences, I'm happy to stick my neck out.
I think there is a scenario, and I said this with the Phoenix, that the 1 and 2 could collide. There's a scenario Dewana Star clears Traumatised. There's no doubt that could happen. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty keen, though, that Traumatised will get that room from Ross the Boss, who'll probably take care of the speed coming over from the outside. And I think the $1.65 actually shapes up to be pretty good value. Well, Mickey, I think that's just about it, mate, for the 7th episode, the bonus episode of the Phoenix Flight Path. And I think they, was it Frank Sinatra? Is it, no, the end is near? I can't believe it, mate. 2025 Phoenix in the book. It's done. The podcast is done for the Phoenix Flight Path, and we're about to head to sales. So for the punters out there, don't go anywhere. There's still plenty to come. But, mate, I feel like this has become part of our life.
I know it's going to be weird not rocking up to the Meadows and Man Cave and filming with you, James. But especially loved that one we did together last week. That was great. So I'm hoping maybe we can do another one on the big triple group one night over the Meadows Australian Summer Carnival.
And as I let you go, Mick, who is the one greyhound right now that is going to take next year, the 2026 season, by the scruff of the neck? Who is it going to be?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with Kenya Mayhem. Still a young dog. Bernardos are flying. Melbourne Cup winner, second in a Phoenix. Had no luck the other night. It's a really tough question though. Like that, sometimes some of these dogs can come from the clouds. Maybe Distinction might win her next 10 starts. I mean, who knows? But I'll go with Kenya Mayhem.
For me, I'm going to say Electrify as a star stayer for the sort of mid to end section of next year. And for the sprint, you know who I'm going to back in? The big T, Mr. T, Traumatise.
Yep. Nothing wrong with those selections.
Saturday night, confidence up, the muscles just bursting out of the arms, a bit like me, and he's going to go bang in 2026. Well, Mickey, thanks, mate. We'll hopefully catch you for the Oz Cup Carnival if the Meadows want to pay up.
Yep, that sounds great to me, James. Looking forward to it.
Well, punters, that is all for the Phoenix Flight Path of 2025. On a more serious note, I would like to thank the Meadows for joining up and partnering with the Green Light On podcast to have a really good look and a fun look at the Phoenix of 2025. What an amazing 6 or 7 weeks it was. Don't forget you can follow us on the socials, Green Light On Facebook or on Instagram, and make sure you follow our YouTube channel as well for all the video versions of what you're hearing through the podcast. Until next time, punters, safe travelling. Happy punting. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.